In the house I was raised in, I didn't know there was an option other than strength. I saw it in my parents. They were strength and hope and courage and commitment personified every day. So I didn't know you could be weak. Not that they would allow for weakness. It wasn't like I was growing up and they were telling me you have to be strong, but just the behavior that was modeled in my own house was strength and optimism and love and leaning on your family. And I didn't know anything different.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Club 30. I'm your host, Henrik Lundqvist. Jay, how we feeling?
We are feeling great. Looking forward to this one. Old friend?
Old friend, yeah. We go back. I mean, we were not friends back then. He was just a kid. He was, I think, 13 years old.
Yeah.
First time we met. Will Reeve is our guest today, a rising star on TV.
There's a lot, actually, I don't know about Will. I just know that I enjoy, whenever I'm in his company, I really enjoy being in his company.
And we had the pleasure of watching his documentary last week. What an incredible documentary.
Yeah. It was, it tugged on all the heartstrings.
It really was. I think we should get into it right away here.
Yeah. Let's get him in here and have an episode.
He's a current ABC News correspondent, appearing on World News Tonight with David Muir and Good Morning America. You can also catch him in a new documentary near and dear to his heart called Superman, the Christopher Reeve Story. Welcome to Club 30, Will Reeve.
What's up, boys?
Great
So
to have you here.
So pumped to be here. This is an honor, man. This is so exciting.
Honor is ours.
How you feeling? How's life right now?
Life is great. Firing on all cylinders. I love my New York sports. They're back in action, which is great.
Yeah.
Personal life is great. I recently moved to Brooklyn, which
Oh, wow.
is cool.
Where?
Williamsburg.
Nice.
Loving
Look at
it.
you. 20 years late.
Yeah, right. I know. I'm a little behind. I'm a little behind the trend. I think actually I'm like the happiest and most like well-adjusted I may have ever been.
Wow.
Which is a good place to be. I'm 32. I'm heading in the right direction.
I love
That's
that.
great.
When you ask people how you do, it's like, I'm doing great. And not that they just say it, but they feel it.
Yeah.
We've been running into each other for years.
Yes.
Like different events, MSG. And every time I walk away from our conversations, I'm like, man, Will is such a nice guy. You're so humble, genuine, and curious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Would you say you're a curious person?
I always have been. Yeah. We joked in my family that my first words were why, because I was always asking why. So yes, I am very curious, and thank you for saying I'm humble. I would say the exact same about you. Every time I walk away from any of our interactions, I go two things: like one, holy shit, that was Hank, that's awesome, and two, and more seriously, it's like just what a great guy. And you've always been so kind to me, and so have you, Jay. And it's I don't know. I think we were all raised right, you know. If you try to treat others with kindness and humility, and good things will happen.
So being curious, obviously, I assume that helps in your work.
Yes.
And you interviewed so many different people.
Yeah.
To you, what's the key to a great interview?
I think being curious and also is very important. I think coming in with an open mind, you may be interviewing someone for a specific reason, to talk about a specific news event or a specific project that they're working on or a game that they are playing in, what have you. But I think if you come in with an open mind, and if you come in wanting to allow the person to feel comfortable enough with you to share what they really think and feel, rather than giving you canned PR media trained answers.
Do you have a trick to break the ice early?
You employed this trick before we started taping here. We just started chatting as friends, and then all of a sudden here we are recording a podcast. And then you just try to get to know someone. If I ever have a mutual connection, a friend, whatever, with the subject I'm interviewing, I'm bringing that up right away. I'm like, oh, hey, we know the same person, so that the person feels like, okay, this guy knows at least one other person who I like, who also likes him, so I'll give him a chance. And then I think to really get the best out of people when you interview them, you have to ask open questions, give them a chance to take the answer where they want to take it. If you're asking yes or no questions, if the person doesn't want to play ball, they can just say yes or no and move it on. So I learned that early on when I worked at ESPN. You got to open, neutral, and lean. So like short questions that are not biased, and then
Jay, are you taking notes?
I am taking notes, but this is something that we've tried to get better at, right? It's like not leading the guest down like a super tight path where the only answer is what you ask.
right.
Yeah.
You're there
Sure.
to facilitate the conversation, not dominate it, I guess.
How much do you critique your own work?
So much.
Really?
I have a hard time watching myself. It feels a little like self-indulgent because it's not like in hockey you can critique yourself, and I know you were and probably still are self-critical about your performance, but you need to watch game tape to figure out what to fix and how to fix it. I'll watch my own stuff back, but it's really hard to do because like I don't like the sound of my own voice. Sometimes I don't like the way I look or sound, or I wish I had done this instead of that, and you can get so in your own head, which I guess probably happens in hockey too if you're like over analyzing your performance.
True. You have to be honest.
Right.
Obviously. I think that's the biggest thing. If you want to get better in the way you assess your own performance, you have to be very honest and like really dig in there.
Yeah, it's the same in business too. It's like you have to get rid of the ego.
Yeah.
And be like, is this good?
But I think that's a big difference though when you talk about sports versus almost anything. Sport, it's so black and white, especially for a goalie.
Yeah, there's wins and losses, goals or saves.
Exactly. But now doing a podcast or working on TV and someone tells me, that was great, Hank. It's like, was it? I don't know. How do I know?
Welcome to my world. That's this. If someone tells me good job, my response is thanks. What was good about it? Like why? What should I do more of? What can I eliminate? But it is so subjective, and I'm sure I'll watch this back and be like, damn it, this answer could have been better. Why was I moving my hands around so much? And that I'll just always do that. But I'm a perfectionist. I always say good enough isn't good enough.
I'm going to remember that to ask why. Because a lot of times when someone tells me that, oh, that was great. A lot of times I feel like, oh, he probably just says that to be nice.
Right. But you don't you don't want to come across as like, oh, tell me exactly why I'm so good, because then it sounds like you're fishing for compliments. But as long as you position it as, I appreciate the compliment. Thank you for saying I did a good job, but I would like to know what you found so good about this so that I can do more of that. And is there anything else that I should eliminate? I don't know. I'm in my head all the time. It's a loud place.
I think that's a gift though. No, it's a total gift because I mean, I wouldn't say that either of you have typical jobs. It's like this vacuum. When you go from sports to work, like professional life, nobody likes giving feedback because all they want to do is really go home. With like rare exceptions of awesome managers.
Right. And if they have to give negative feedback, that's going to be like, that's no fun.
Right. Yeah. So as an athlete or correspondent on air, you're always getting feedback, whether it's from yourself or from peers. In the workplace, it's like, it is the exception to the rule.
Right. Sports is really the only place where the feedback is immediate and there is a literal scoreboard. That's why they say athletes make such good TV presenters, because they are, I assume, are receptive to coaching, right? You want to be told how to improve or what you can do better. Yeah.
No, I see it as a great opportunity, good or bad feedback. You know,
do
or
you
maybe there's
sensitive?
No bad feedback.
There is no bad feedback.
You are very good on TV, but do you get sensitive if people tell you that you're not doing something up to the standard that they've set? Or
no. Again, I think playing sports for so long that you were just used to it. You were used to reading about that you sucked last night.
Right.
You got used to having
especially
fans
here in New York
telling you like that was terrible. Obviously, you have a lot of moments when you have the opposite and you get great, energy feedback from people. But
I mean, they literally chant your name at the Garden. Like that you specifically, they chant your name.
They do that at ABC for you though too, right? When you walk in.
It's a round of applause every time I walk in.
Well deserved.
Yeah, in my head. Again, loud place.
So of all the interviews, anyone that really surprised you or impressed you sitting there? Is there anyone that stands out to you?
I've been so lucky to interview lots of my heroes and to meet people that I might not otherwise meet. One that stands out because it was everything I hoped it would be and more was my time I got to spend with Denzel Washington.
Oh, wow.
Who doesn't love Denzel, right? Right. And the reason it was special beyond just getting to meet this cool actor that I've looked up to is because it was at the opening of the 5,000th Boys and Girls Club in the U.S. in a suburb of Chicago. And he's the national spokesman for the Boys and Girls Club. And the Boys and Girls Club of America is really important to me. I'm actually recently, not to pat myself on the back, I've been inducted into the Boys and Girls Club Hall of Fame.
Oh, wow.
So that was, I don't know how, I really didn't deserve it, but that's another story for another day. But getting to go to this club where Denzel was taking a tour, meeting the kids and actually participating in their activities, seeing the positive impact that the Boys and Girls Club is having on these lives. And Denzel is the ultimate example of that. He was a Boys and Girls Club kid in Mount Vernon, New York. But to get to spend time with him and have him meet my hopes and dreams of what he might be, all in the context of a cause that matters a lot to us, like was a perfect marriage of all the things I hoped for. The ones that really stick with me are not with people that anyone's ever heard of. It's the otherwise anonymous folks all around the country and around the world who might have endured something tragic and horrible, and now the news, quote unquote, is in their town. I've interviewed people after fires and hurricanes and other disasters, both natural and man-made, and getting to speak with these folks when they are at their lowest moment and experiencing their humanity and their gratitude for their chance to tell their story is profoundly impactful. And those stick with me. And they're not household names at all, but they're heroes in every way. So those stick with me as well, but I couldn't name this one.
Okay.
That's great.
Let's go back a little bit in time here. We have a lot of Ranger fans listening to the pod, and you used to do
at least 10
the blue carpet.
Yeah, I did do the blue carpet.
Blue carpet.
I love the blue carpet. I feel like, did you ever stop by the blue carpet? I don't know if you did.
A couple times, and actually, it's funny. We were talking about this last week or 2 weeks ago, I think, when your name came up, and you used to do it, and it's like, yeah, Hank, he never really did the blue carpet. He was so focused. He always went straight.
You just go straight in, even though you were the best dressed on every game day, though. Like every loading dock was the blue carpet for you, rocking in there with your 3-piece suits. I want to know how many suits you own, but I'll ask you that in a little bit. The blue carpet was awesome.
Yeah,
just seeing all the fans. What was that opening night of the home opener? They do that. It was just such a treat for me because I was brand new in my career. And the folks at MSG, from the top down at MSG and at the Rangers, have always been so good to me and my family. And then I did the MSG hockey show, which was it was me and Ace, Anson Carter, and Arda Okal, who now does ESPN hockey stuff. It was the three of us at 11:30 p.m. live in the studio across the street from the Garden, the same one that presumably you still work in. And we would always get a player to come over after the game. We never got you because you were probably like, man, I'm going home. But it was a lot of fun, and saw a lot of great moments out of you and those teams back then. That was fun.
But you grew up watching the Rangers, right?
Big time. And it was like
big hockey
ingrained
fan.
in my blood. The Rangers matter a lot to me because I'm a big fan, but also because it's a connection to my family and especially to my dad. He grew up outside the city in New Jersey, so he was a Rangers fan from, the 50s and 60s. And then when he was Superman and famous and all that stuff, and he was having a good time in New York, he and Ron Greschner and Ron Duguay used to run around the city. Back when running around the city was
I can see that.
like a totally different level.
Yeah.
And Dukes has told me some good stories over the years of their nights out, which I guess I'll keep private because I don't even know if they're true, but they sound fun. And then like my dad was just always a Rangers fan. He and Mess became great friends as once Mess came to New York. And then when my dad got injured, actually, the Devils had just won the Stanley Cup in 1995. My dad got injured Memorial Day 95. The Devils won, a couple weeks later. And my dad was at rehab eventually in New Jersey, coming back from his injury, trying to stay alive and hopefully try to walk again. And the Devils knew he was a hockey fan. They called and said, we'd like to bring the Stanley Cup to Mr. Reeve to pay our respects. And he goes, no. The Devils. I'm not letting the Devils bring me the Stanley Cup, which I love. And I actually got to tell Martin Brodeur that story once, and he found it very funny, which I was grateful for. But yeah, and then I would just go to games with my parents all the time. This was before the renovation at MSG, so there weren't really many accessible seats for my dad in his wheelchair. So they would just pull us up in the Zamboni entrance where the visiting team comes in and out, and we would just sit right by the glass. And that's where I developed my love for hockey and for the Rangers. And now every time that I go to the Garden, which is as often as possible, it's almost like going to church or to some place of like deep spiritual significance because of all the memories I have of going to Ranger games and other events with my dad and with my parents.
And what you're saying now is something I really appreciate today after being retired. When I run into, well, at this point, yeah, they're your age, around 30, and they come up to me, it's like, Hank, I grew up watching the Rangers with my dad, and you're such a big part of that. As an athlete, I love that when you feel like they had so many great moments at the Garden, creating these amazing memories together as a family. I love that.
You were a huge part of that too. You were on the team when they retired Mess's jersey, right? Or was that the year before? You were on the team. Did you play that game?
Yes.
The reason I remember it so clearly is because that was my mom's last public appearance. She sang in the ceremony at the end of Mess's jersey retirement. John Davidson, who was emceeing, goes, "We have one last surprise for you." And everyone in the crowd, I was standing in the crowd, they're like, "Oh, Gretzky's coming out. Gretzky's coming out." But it was my mom to sing a song for Mark because we were that close. And my mom used to sing the national anthem before games. But it was January of 2006, and she had been diagnosed with lung cancer, but she got the strength to come out and sing the song called Now and Forever for Mark. And then I got to go to the after party at the Rainbow Room, and I was 13 at the time. So that was cool.
I remember that party.
I remember seeing you. You had the pointiest shoes I've ever seen in my life. You had the Fallout Boy haircut going on
that
at the
first
time.
year. There was a lot going on with the shoes and the hair.
I remember seeing the shoes and being like, "Those are crazy shoes," but this rookie goalie is nasty, so we're just gonna roll with it.
Look the other way for the shoes.
But lots of memories in the Garden for great reasons. I love that play. And you're a big part of that.
And you play hockey too.
I do. Well, the last time I skated was when you were my coach at that charity game a few years ago. So it's been a while. Yeah. I was so gassed during that game. I used to play men's league at Chelsea Piers here every Monday. And I grew up playing like rather competitively. I actually played against Vincent Trocheck and JT Miller in a tournament, and that's when I was certain that I had no chance to make it to to the next level. Seeing those guys out on the ice.
But you enjoy going out on the ice still?
Love it. It's the best. I mean, it's hockey's by far my favorite sport, and that was the last time I skated was for that really special charity game, and you were the coach. And I don't remember who won or lost. I know that it didn't matter.
We had a great time.
I think we won, right?
Let's say we won.
Coach? I was the assistant coach, Will, because I didn't play hockey growing up. I knew nothing. I was just there to.
You were the vibes guy.
I was the vibes guy.
Yeah.
I was kind of the locker room.
Hank was also kind of the vibes guy.
Yeah. I was there to have a good time.
You were definitely there to have a good time.
That was my goal.
Yeah. You succeeded.
But I love that hockey's been such a big part of your life. And if you go back, you growing up, pretty unique, having two very famous parents. Like, what's your strongest memory from growing up?
Well, my strongest memories from growing up don't involve them as public figures at all. My parents were grounded, normal people who, my dad happened to play Superman and gain worldwide fame from it and built this big career. And by the time I came along, he was done with Superman. He and my mom raised me about an hour north of New York City. We never lived in LA. We never had the big Hollywood lifestyle at all because that's not who my parents were. They had a really strong value set that they emphasized love and hard work and communicating that love with your family and spending time with your family and showing up for the people that you love and giving more to the world than you take from it. And that's what I remember. Just a warm, loving household that always had a lot going on. I always was in every different extracurricular activity. I'm grateful that I grew up in a community where no one cared that my dad or my mom was well known. And I joke a lot, like for someone who grew up with Superman for a dad who was then in a wheelchair, I had a very normal life. Because those are two abnormal things.
Very.
They didn't buy into their own hype or press or fame. And that trickled down to me, and that matters a lot. I think like you were kind enough to say that you found me humble with the times that we've hung out, and like I like to think that I am, but that I know exactly where that comes from is my parents being like, nobody is better than anybody else. We're all just human beings trying the best we can. So.
I'm just trying to picture, like any kid out there, obviously, you look at your dad as Superman.
Right.
But your dad, he was a Superman for everyone.
Right.
And before my question, I just want to say Superman was my favorite movie.
Good man.
1 and 2. I watched them so many times growing up that we broke the actual VCS tape. Like I
you wore out
it.
the tape.
Yeah.
On
my
that's
goodness.
awesome.
It was just so great.
We were running through a lot of the highlights yesterday at lunch.
Yeah.
Is that Superman 3 or 2?
Right.
Turns back time. Yeah, it was awesome.
But because I try to picture like my kids, they constantly make fun of me, and I'm not sure if they look at me as this goofy guy or Superman or hero. There's moments, but do you remember how you view your dad? I mean,
just as dad. I think you mentioned like looking up to fathers as Superman, as any kid might. My dad was my hero because he was my dad. I didn't care that he was Superman. It made no difference to my life. I was proud of it, I suppose, but I didn't put that much stock in it. I didn't try to use that to my advantage out in the world. And I just idolized him because of the love he showed me, the example that he set for me, even though he was injured when I was really young, I was about 11 days shy of my 3rd birthday when he got paralyzed in the horseback riding accident. He was still so emotionally present for me always, and physically present. We couldn't do all the stuff that a father and son or a father and child might typically do, but he was still there, and he still loved me and supported me and encouraged me. And that's all that ultimately matters to a child, is just, are your heroes there for you, and do they lift you up and support you? And I got that every minute of every day that I had with my parents. So yes, I looked up to him as Superman, but not because he played the role.
So last week, Jay and I, we watched the documentary.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That was...
and I just have to say, it was emotional, beautiful, and inspiring at the same time. How was that process for you to shoot something so personal and also, go back in time and really kind of relive it? Maybe, I don't know. How was the experience?
Well, thank you for watching it and for saying kind things. The experience for me was I had one day that I sat for one interview. It was 8 hours long with like a 20-minute lunch break. That was a hard day because I went to places emotionally and mentally that I hadn't ever gone publicly and rarely even go privately on my own time, like reliving the night that my dad died, or what I was doing the day my mom told me she was sick, and all like really formative, traumatic moments in my life. I shared everything. I wanted to be vulnerable, and so did my siblings, because we want this documentary, Superman, the Christopher Reeve Story, to be a definitive historical document of this great man and his life, and this great woman, my mom, and her life, and our family story. So we needed to share everything, because authenticity is what connects with people. I was willing to go there, quote unquote. So that was hard, that one day, but it was also beautiful because I got to share so many memories and all this pride that I feel for being a part of my family. And I love talking about my parents. So that was a treat. I did that. We handed over all of our home movies and stuff. And then my siblings and I said, all right, guys, like, we trust you to the filmmakers. Go make this film. And we saw a almost fully final cut a week before they submitted it to Sundance. So there wasn't even really much to change. Not that we had any control over it anyway. And that was the point. We wanted to just sort of have it out there without sort of our thumb on the scale as the family members. And then it got into Sundance, and now it's been on this whole crazy journey with Warner Brothers buying and stuff. But it's all been such a gratifying experience because people get to either remember my dad or be introduced to him and to my mom and to our family. And I think that matters, especially in a world that needs heroes. You could do worse than Christopher or Dana Reeve as your heroes. They're remarkable people.
Yeah, you said authenticity. And, what I really appreciated about the film was how unpolished and just real everything was.
Yeah.
We all have these preconceptions like, oh, my best friend's family is way more fun than mine, and they have the perfect life. right? Or like Hank's family, they have the perfect life.
Yeah.
You could easily come up with a lot of reasons
Right.
why you could make that broad kind of
Yeah.
stereotype. But what I really loved was how you and your siblings shared all of it.
Yeah.
You know, like
Thank you.
the fucked up stuff, the really hard stuff.
It's a human story.
It's a human story, right?
Yeah, that's the point. And
Yeah.
I think, I mean, Henrik, in your position where you've lived in this city for so long and you're a public figure and you have a literal arena that chants your name, I'm sure that can be disorienting and remove you in a way from your own humanity of like, where is like Hank, the Swedish boy who's living a dream, like where does he end and where does like the king come in, and how are those the same? How are those different? I think that was a struggle my dad felt and dealt with a lot, is like, all right, so I'm getting all this like praise and adulation from people around the world, but I have a shitty relationship with my own father. Like, cause that was the case for him. And how does he become a better father? And I wonder if you found similarities in that part of the story of like, oh, I know what it's like to have the microscope on me as I just try to figure out who I am as a person.
Yeah, I think the key throughout my career and my life, I've always been who's around me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you live in this bubble sometimes. You live your dream. You play the sport you always wanted to play, and be put on a pedestal at times.
Right.
But really, when you leave that and you go home, who's around you and what values do they bring to the table? And that's the reality to me. You know, it's a checkpoint, you know, with the friends, with the family.
Yeah.
And it really keeps you grounded and helps you to have a very healthy relationship to, you know, it's kind of two lives almost.
Sure.
Like the public life and then the family life. And you kind of crisscross a little bit, obviously. And the transition goes daily.
But I'm sure your daughters never cared if you came home winning or losing.
No.
Like,
and that was...
they loved you just the same, and they wanted you to play with them either way, and they wanted you to be there either way. They didn't care if you won or lost.
Mm-hmm. And that was weird in the beginning when, as a dad, you know, because usually they felt like the world was about to end when you lost. You come home and you have these two girls at home. It's like, let's go, Dad. I was like, let's play.
And you're like, but don't you know that I let in 4 goals?
It's the worst day ever.
Yeah,
it's
right.
Like, no, you had to like open the door. You had to.
It's real perspective,
switch.
And that's perspective is everything. The things that you think matter really don't.
Yeah.
And it's what you prioritize. It's who you prioritize. To your point about who's around you, that makes all the difference.
And there was a quote in the movie that really hit me when, you know, your mom passed, and you woke up.
Yeah.
You said you pretended to be asleep.
Yeah.
Like watching that, by the way, my wife was in tears. I was in tears. Like it was so beautiful and inspiring again. But
thank you.
In that moment, like how did you find strength to?
In the house I was raised in, I didn't know there was an option other than strength. I saw it in my parents. They were strength and hope and courage and commitment personified every day. So I didn't know you could be weak. Not that they would allow for weakness. It wasn't like I was growing up and they were telling me you have to be strong, but just the behavior that was modeled in my own house was strength and optimism and love and leaning on your family. And I didn't know anything different. So it was only natural for me to just keep moving forward. And obviously it was tragic and terrible and sad and scary and everything you would imagine losing both parents in 18 months would be. So in that moment you're referencing where I was in a hotel room in New York with my 2 siblings, who are a bit older. They get the call in the middle of the night that my mom had died. I hear that phone call sleeping on the cot at the foot of the bed. And I was awake, but I pretended to be asleep because I didn't want to face it. And then when I woke up, my whole world had been totally shattered, but it also, everyone in my world came around me to lift me up and support me and love me and make me feel safe. So there's another part in the film where I talk about since March 6, 2006, which is the day my mom died, that I've been alone. And I always feel compelled to clarify what I mean by that, because I've never been alone in my journey in life, because I have so many people who love me and support me. My next door neighbors adopted me, like formally adopted me that
Really?
day. And they're still my family to this day. We like, that's home for me. We do every holiday together. Like that's my family.
Cool.
But what I mean by being alone is not on a day-to-day basis. It's more in a, I guess, emotional or spiritual sense. Like there will always be the void where the two people who mattered the most to me in this world will always be gone. And having to just go through that and overcome that is a permanent, never-ending journey. Like I'll never not miss them. I will never not be grieving their loss, but it's what you do with that grief and how you find meaning in your life that honors them and makes your life, I think, more fulfilling and meaningful. That's at least what I've found right now. So when we were talking earlier, you said, it's nice to hear that you hear someone say they're doing great. Like I really am, because I live my life pretty intentionally with who I surround myself with, what I devote my energy to, where my passions lead me is all pretty intentional. And it's taken some major detours and fuck ups and course corrections, but the general direction is something I'm really proud of and will continue to work at.
You touched on honoring your parents through your incredible work with the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation. Can you talk about the work that's being done through the foundation?
The Reeve Foundation is the leading organization for spinal cord injury research and for providing quality of life care to individuals living with paralysis. So if someone sustains an injury, their whole world shatters. We have the resources that are devoted to trying to find cures to get people out of wheelchairs, but we also have raised and deployed tens of millions of dollars to provide care and support for the people and their families who are going through such a traumatic and terrifying event. And it's one of the great honors in my life to carry on my parents' legacy in that way. It's something that they both felt very strongly about, obviously. And my mom was the care side because she had become this caregiver for my dad. My dad was the cure side because he wanted to get out of the wheelchair. It's a really big part of my life, and it's a big part of life for the spinal cord injury community.
I love it.
You guys are way ahead of your time from the perspective of treatment.
Yeah.
Like stem cell. It felt from watching the doc that you or your father were kind of at the forefront of like trying and pioneering that for the first time.
My dad always used to say he wished he could be a rat because they're always testing things on rats. He wanted to be in there. He was always imploring scientists and members of Congress to work harder and better and faster. And like the possibilities around stem cells are endless, and certainly something that we're still heavily invested in and involved in, but also just the advances of technology and AI are really providing a lot of hope for people. And that's a cool thing I get to do at my job at ABC, is get to like tell these stories to a national audience about this dude in Switzerland who is now able to walk after having been paralyzed because of this AI bridge from his brain to his spinal cord that bypasses the injury and tells his body what to do. And he's able to get up and walk. And I interviewed the first patient with a Neuralink device implanted in their head, which is the chip that basically allows you to control a computer with your mind, which gives you back so much freedom. It's a cool marriage of my life and career.
Those stories, and
those
how
stories,
does it work?
those ones specifically kind of pick me because I think my bosses are like, who else would tell the story of the spinal cord injury story? But generally, I get to pitch stories.
Okay,
they don't always get approved or greenlit. Oftentimes I'm just assigned to, all right, this is what you're doing today. But I've been at ABC long enough that like I have certain beats that I know that I'll be doing. I get to do a lot of sports. I get to do a lot of fun stuff. My life is like generally a dream.
Did you know as a kid you wanted to work TV?
No? I honestly wanted to play in the NHL, and then I like turned 12 and realized that was delusional. So from then on, I mean, I grew up watching ESPN every second of the day. So I figured if I couldn't play sports, I would want to talk about them. So that was something I thought that I would want to do. And then I ended up getting to work at ESPN, like to start my career, which was a blessing. And I still can't believe that happened. So yeah, I didn't have the childhood dream as much as I kind of realized as I grew up and realized what I was good at and what I was passionate about. It seemed like doing TV journalism was kind of the perfect.
Who was giving you advice at that age when you're like contemplating career path, first step?
The list is like too long to mention. I was just cultivating mentors and friends as I went along. I think I had, my family, and including the family that adopted me, or of course like guiding me in certain directions, talk to my siblings. In college, I was talking to professors who saw something in my writing abilities or what have you. I interned at ABC actually during college, and that's when I met a lot of the people that I now work for full time.
Great.
And they were like, you should pursue, like, you should think about this. You should do this. And all it takes, I mean, you both know in your career is like, you just need one person to believe in you or a group of people to give you the chance to at least get on the path. Right. And then from there, it's kind of up to you whether you take advantage of the opportunity, but you can't get the opportunity without someone seeing something in you. And I think enough people saw enough somethings in me that I was able to get the ball rolling. And now I'm just going to keep going as long as I can.
Let's shift a little bit to New York City. I mean, you spent a lot of time here.
I do. This is home.
This is home, right?
You know as well as anyone. You could live anywhere in the world, but you choose New York.
I choose New York because I love it. I love the energy. I love everything about it.
But I feel like you uniquely mastered New York, like at a level that most people don't. Like I've got my spots that like I could probably get a reservation or I, know where to send someone from out of town depending on what they like. But like you did it at the highest possible level of like you actually conquered the city, I think.
I don't know about that.
Jay, can you be the deciding vote here?
I mean, every email I get from a restaurant, it says, "Hey, Henrik, thanks," because I always make the reservations.
Right, you're like, "Hi, I'm making a reservation for Henrik Lundqvist."
Yes. So all my thank yous are, Henrik, we'd love to have you back at so and so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that. I think that somebody showed him that, he made the most of the opportunity he was shown. There's a very small subset of that iconic athlete group that makes New York part of their social fabric as well. And gives back to the city, I think, the way that Hank does.
Right.
He's super engaged.
They still get, free drinks at dinner or a free dinner. I don't even know how it works, what the Legends pricing is. I got to pay full freight, maybe a free dessert if I know the owner or something, but that's a testament to who you are. I could not imagine being from a small town in Sweden and somehow over the decades becoming a New Yorker and just mastering life in the hardest place to master life and stay grounded. So it's just a compliment to you and how you are. I know I couldn't do that. And if you sent me to Sweden, I would have no idea what to do.
You just make reservations under his name.
Yeah, right. Hi, do you guys know Henrik Lundqvist? Like everyone in Sweden knows each other, right?
Yeah.
My brother actually lives in Stockholm, so he's figured it out.
Only 10 million people there.
Yeah, right.
We all know each other.
Well, I mean, they all know you. That's for sure.
I think the secret is what you mentioned earlier, Will, which is you treat everybody as a fellow human being.
Yeah,
and
that's all that matters.
And I think Hank, you do a really good job of that. Even when you're interrupted and it might be annoying or personal, you have a lot of grace,
That is what will leave lasting memories for people when they think about you, is how you were kind to them or gave them the time of day. Because you don't think of yourself as, when you walk on the streets of New York, that matters to anyone else, right? I know my dad didn't think of himself as worthy of attention as he went down the block to get a coffee, or later in life when he showed up at one of my school plays or whatever. He was just living his life. But for some people, encountering you or encountering him back in the day was a moment that they would remember for maybe the rest of their lives. So how you treat them is going to stick with them, which on the one hand, you better be on your game all the time, right? Like you can't afford to be having a bad day, which is unfair because you're a human being and everyone has bad days or bad moments within a good day. But you also know that you have the power to positively influence someone's life, maybe forever. And that, like, you seem to have handled that very well.
You have to be not on, but you try to be yourself, right?
Yeah.
And Jay, to your point, treat everybody with respect and try to be nice.
Yeah.
And have your boy make dinner reservations.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or my wife, who's better at it than me, for him.
Are you a planner, or do you look ahead? Like you're a rising star right now.
Thank you.
Do you look down the road, see yourself stay in this field, or do you have a lot of things you want to accomplish, or different things you want to do?
Yes. Yes to all of that.
Yes
like
to
I
all
want to
of
stay.
that.
Yes, I am a planner, obsessively so. I think I've learned through years of like self-analysis and like therapy and reading books and things that like people who go through traumatic loss, especially at a young age, become really control oriented. So I am like, the fact that I was 2 minutes late to sit down with you guys was eating at me, because I was like, no, I said I was going to be here at this time. Interestingly enough, in my life, I sweat the small stuff. Like I'm incredibly detail oriented, and I'm really fastidious about my calendar, and I'm really I try to be on top of my day to day. But then I believe in the universe carrying me on its wave long term, which is a lot of people agonize over their future and are okay with not sweating the small stuff. And I don't know which is better or worse. It's just what works for me is everything in my life has happened in the way that it ultimately was meant to. And I don't give it much more thought than that, because as I've just gone through life and I've met such interesting people and I've gotten so many great opportunities, and it's all just built on itself. And I am aware of that, and I focus on what I can control, which is like being on time and being kind to people and working hard at whatever my task is, whether it's professional or personal. And then I think it'll ultimately work out. So yes, I have specific career goals that I am orienting myself toward on a daily basis, that if you build up the small little wins over time, you end up where you want to be. But I also, as much as I love what I do and I'm like on a path to be doing even more of what I want to do, there's so much else I want to do. I want to produce films. I want to write books. I want to travel the world. I want to still play for the Rangers. There's a lot that I want to do. And some of it I might achieve. Yeah. But it's all like, I think it'll all just work out. And that's how I try to approach my career and my life, with varying levels of success. Sometimes I'm like bugging out about why am I not this, that, the other. But
you said something a couple minutes ago, bad moment and a good day. Do you have like a rubric when you're having a bad moment and a good day, or a bad day? Like what's you seem like you're on top of the mindset, and
I try to be, but like I have plenty of bad moments within good days. I have plenty of just bad days. I'm a relatively sensitive and moody guy, but I am also self-aware. I know when I'll just like put my hand up with my girlfriend and be like, I'm sorry, I suck right now. Like I'm working on it. I'm trying to figure it out. And I weirdly welcome stress, because it sharpens my mind a little bit of like, okay, this is what I'm stressed about, and the only way out is through. So I'm going to be unpleasant to be around for hopefully the shortest amount of time possible. Yeah. So I guess that's my rubric. I don't have a checklist of, okay, first I do 5 deep breaths, then I spin around. Although I do have one thing.
Hold on.
I do have one thing. You have met Amanda before. I'm not sure that you've met Amanda, but you will. She's such a blessing in my life in so many ways. One major blessing is she makes me laugh all the time, and often at myself, which I think is very important. And when I'm especially cranky or just not fun to be around or in a bad mood, she actually makes me do it. Makes me stand on one foot and hop around and go, woo, 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 because it's so ridiculous. Like, I'm embarrassed to even do it right now, but you can't stay in a bad mood after you're jumping around on one foot, wooing in the kitchen. It's so silly. It's like, all right, life isn't that serious. This situation isn't that serious.
I love it.
It's impressive she makes you do that when you're really upset. No, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. Right. I'll be like, no, that's ridiculous. No, I'm really mad. And she's like, I don't care. It's time to woo woo. I'm like, all right, fine. And of course, you know what it is. Happy wife, happy life. So it's,
that is true.
That is very true.
Yeah. And it makes me happy too.
Listen, we are running out of time here.
Oh, man.
But it was so good to catch up. I still remember the first time we met, but it was in the locker room.
Yeah.
Because I remember one of our team representatives came up to me. He's like, hey, Will Reeve is here. I think at the time you must have been, 15 years old?
Not even. If it's the time I'm thinking of.
05, 06.
Yeah,
so
I would have been like 13.
13.
You had pointy shoes then, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, my rookie year. There was a lot going on with me.
He wasn't yet the fashion king.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, in Sweden.
You were super Euro. Super Euro.
Exactly.
But it
I
all
took
worked
a lot
out.
of heat in the locker room with my style. But again, thank you so much for coming on.
This is a
I
pleasure,
look forward
man.
to the
It's such
next
an
time
honor.
we run into each other, events, or I think it's time for a hockey game soon. Too.
Yeah,
Maybe.
well, let's make it a place where there aren't microphones and cameras, and we
That sounds perfect.
just actually hang out.
Maybe we get a dinner and a MSG night for the 6 of us together.
Absolutely.
There you
go. Yeah.
We'll make it
Done.
happen.
Done.
Honored to have you. Honored to know
Guys,
you.
thank you.
Yeah.
It's a
Thank you,
pleasure.
brother.
This is like such a treat. Of all the things that I've gotten to do, this is like very high on the list of just honors to kick it with you guys, because you guys are have been good to me for a long time, and it's just like a pleasure to be with. So thank you.
Feeling very mutual.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, much love.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks to Will again for taking the time to come and see us here in Midtown at Club 30. Any takeaways, Jay?
He made our jobs easy. I mean, he made us look good as host because he was so inquisitive and curious, as we talked about. It's just nice to be in a positive, glow of somebody.
It feels like he's on the path to something really good. I love his energy.
Mm-hmm.
He has the tools to conquer the world, I feel like, with his mindset and skills. Really happy for him.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a real honor having him on, and it's a real honor having you guys as Club 30 listeners and viewers. So thanks for joining us. Another season and underway here. And if you like what you see, we'd be honored to have you follow us anywhere you get your podcasts or on YouTube for the video version.
Until next time, have a great week, everyone. And we'll be back